Years from now, it has a 1-800 number and it has a internet address that asks people to report the data. If they send it in and say they found a dead bird on the side of the road at Delta Junction, and they give their address or they give the location and the date, that we can just go back through the computer and it will automatically identify that I put this band on this bird and it was a baby great horned owl in the summer of 2015, and so we'll get some information back. And less than 1% of most birds that are banded turn up again, but if you band enough birds, eventually you get information and we can learn about their movements. And great horned owls they're called resident species. They live here year round, so this is not a migratory bird. This guy is not going to move a long distance for the winter, in contrast to many other birds. These swallows that are flying all over, they're going to go to Mexico this winter. So if one of them gets banded here and it gets found in the winter, we would learn where the swallows that live in the interior of Alaska winter. This guy, the information would actually be pretty boring because he is probably not going to go more than maybe at very most 500 miles in his life, and he might live his whole life right here in the interior of Alaska. And most birds die their first year, so this guy's he's probably got an 80% chance of not being alive a year from now. Birds have to learn how to hunt. They have to learn how to not fly into windows and get hit by cars. They have a lot of lessons to learn, and when you make a mistake, you often die as opposed to learning. So most of them die in their first year, but if they make it through their first year, then the odds kind of flip. And a great horned owl that's a year old, if he's still alive next year at this time, he probably has an 80% chance of living through the next year, even though he has an 80% chance of dying his first year. And so with bands, we can tell all this by determining how old birds are when they die. We can deduce from that, we can infer that they lived up until that point, and we can evaluate how different species of birds have different survival rates as well as their migrations. So we can learn a lot from it. So this band just goes on with a pair of pliers and just gets tightened on, and I have to just submit the data, the information that goes with it. So it goes in this large national database that's managed out of Maryland, and everybody that bands birds in Canada, everybody that bands birds all across the United States puts their data into the same database, and it identifies me as the bander, and if I get notified if this bird turns up. But anybody that's interested in great horned owls can write the banding lab and say, can you give me all band recovery data for all great horned owls, or all great horned owls banded in the boreal forest north of such and such a latitude or whatever. And people can query the database and get this information. Researchers or people that are just interested can have access to this information, so we all can learn about these different species. So that's the deal.
I did that with a sandhill crane. I took a picture of one and he had a band on him. And I queried, you know, when he was banded and all that kind of stuff, which is kind of cool too.
Yeah.
He's yelling for his parents. Is he calling to his parents?
Backing his bill together? No, he's just trying to sound meaner. So
oh.
If I was a coyote or a fox, the idea is that I might be intimidated by that and not be as likely to grab him.
Oh, that's him making that noise?
That's him making that noise. He's snapping his bill together, 2 pieces of his bill.
Ooh, he's not very happy, huh?
Cute. Oh my goodness. Oh, he's so fluffy. I should have called. How do you know he's a boy?
You don't.
Thank you. You can't know if he's a boy.
Not by just looking at him. We could take DNA and tell, but...
Are we going to track him? Track him on the site or something?
No, not really. It was, because each band has its own number.
Savannah.
Doesn't it get tight on
Savannah,
him?
right
I
here.
guess you know what you're doing. I'm sorry.
Savannah.
Oh, how special. He has been a blessing since he's been here. I'm surprised Mom and Dad ain't freaking out. They still up there in the tree. They've been there sitting there.
He's sleeping through this.
They're probably used to people now, but so is that thinking that the parents can determine theirs?
No, he's just doing this to theoretically. He's trying to intimidate the predator, me, trying to convince me not to eat him. And so, thanks. So when you handle these guys, his feet are pretty strong, not as strong as they're going to be in a month. So he could really do a lot of damage. So I have to just hold his legs. And see, he's got fuzz all over him, and then he's growing in his feathers, and they got a ways to go still. And no, let's not pet him. He's not gonna really.
He's not a pet, honey.
He's not a pet.
He needs to be outdoors.
Yep, and he's not enjoying this. He's obviously very stressed and afraid. So
If the parents can be able to smell you
So
on
him
him?
coming out of the nest,
no, they don't smell.
They don't do that.
him coming out of the nest was a fall probably then?
It was totally natural. So he bails when he reaches a certain age, and in some of the owls, they leave the nest before they're capable of flight, and the reason is that they're pretty vulnerable to predation when they're in an open nest like that. So species that nest in cavities stay in there until they're
his eyelash.
completely competent flyers, and the first time they leave, they're capable of flight because they're more secure in a cavity. He's in an open nest, and so he's visible, and predators can see him and hear him, and ravens, and a black bear if he's in a natural nest site and stuff. So
His eyes are crazy.
yeah,
Look at me. So how do you know if it's a boy or girl?
I don't.
DNA.
I just know that it is a boy or girl.
Well, it's been really cool watching him grow up.
Yep.
The fact that they're out of the stress zone now.
Yep. And he's not out of total risk.
No.
I mean, there's dogs and there's cars and there's ravens and there's all sorts of stuff, but there's people, and so it's also time to just sort of
So Ryan said that you're
chuck him in the woods and let nature run its
you
course.
already picked a spot, or
Yeah, we found a spot.
so they'll be able to hear him with the stress call. That's
Yeah, when he gets hungry, he'll start going like.
So you're just gonna put him there until hopefully
You probably
Mom
heard
and
him
Dad-
doing that already at night, right? And so he's going to keep doing that, and they'll hear it, and they'll go, "There he is," and they'll just go right to him and feed him. And sometimes there can be 2 or 3 in a nest, and he's by
There were
himself.
2 eggs, but he's the only one we got.
Yeah.
So can you go up there now and get not you, but the guy, he
Sure.
can clean it out now?
Sure. But this is not a good place for them to have nested, so I wouldn't necessarily say let's
First-time
clean
parents,
out the.
probably.
Yeah, what's that?
First time parent probably.
I don't know what they.
Would
were
they
thinking,
tendency to come back to that same nest?
They might. They might. But it's also possible that with all the attention they drew, that they're
I
kind of.
think Daryl's probably going to
They
take that
might.
box down.
They might kind of think that didn't work out real well, but. All right. Well, we're gonna stick them in the box, so I guess.
Bye-bye. So what is your process for releasing it then?
What's that?
What's your process for releasing
We'll just
it?
take him over and stick him in the woods.
You just open it up, or you have to actually get them out?
Oh, I'll pull him out.
So you got to put them in a tree, or just by a tree?
We'll put him in a tree, and he'll stay there, maybe, and maybe not. It's up to him to decide.
Oh,
So-
I wish you all the luck, big guy.